Let's do it. Welcome, welcome. No Fun League. League name TBD Pod. Week 14. Playoffs are here, man. How are we feeling today?
I
Feel
feel
pretty
like we
good.
got three probable playoff teams here. I think we got a good crew today.
In talks with Mr. Cachabato today, he is damn near certain he is making the cut. So, anyone is still within hawking down range. So we'll see.
Could
How are
be
we
any of our
doing?
heads.
How are
Probably
we
not
doing,
It's
yours.
Mr.
true.
Wittenborn?
It's true. Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
Doing all right, man.
Thanks for having me on again. Second iteration of this. No manager in the mirror. We're talking Yoss now. It's gonna get serious.
Getting serious. So our main, or actually, we're going to talk trades first. First, blockbuster. Dan Marks sends a fourth round pick this year for 50 fab. Dan, walk us through the negotiations on that one.
The to be honest, Rob, right once I sent it, was like, is this for real? Is this a move for DeVito? Which it was. Then I had him propose me something so that I could accept it at 3 a.m., make my middle of the night movement. Um, I knew people were gonna outbid me for Tommy DeVito. I'm kind of desperate at quarterback. I guess it's not really a secret. Dak and Daniel Jones both crashing out for the season left me in a tight spot. We already broke down my Cooper Rush move. This is so similar to me as the Rush move. I got the backup quarterback of my starter who went down. Both guys whose playoff schedules I like, and I had to lock down a quarterback other than Cooper Rush, and unfortunately, it's looking like Tommy DeVito's that guy.
Quite unfortunate, yeah. And then just minutes ago, yours truly acquired Isaac Garendo and Isaiah Davis for Tyjae Spears and a this year third rounder. Initial reactions. I know it just went down. I don't know if we have some raw feelings we need to get out.
It's a good move. There's some, contender-esque trades that, as we just saw happen. I mean, this isn't a blockbuster, but these they're gonna happen as we get close to the deadline. I like the move. I mean, Mason, McCaffrey, they're looking like at least 4 weeks each. So I mean, it's a good move coming into the fantasy playoffs, and I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, we don't know we don't know what Garendo is, but it's looking like he is the starting running back for the Niners for the rest of the season, and that's a good thing to have. So I mean, a third in Tajay, who's flash, but really not. Like this season's been a bad year for Tajay Spears.
Yeah, last year a lot better.
Yes. I think that's a great price. If I had Spears in a third on my team, I would have happily given him up for Garendo. I think that's a great dart throw at a cheap running back who can really impact playoff games.
In another league, I traded for Jordan Mason around week 4 or 5, and it was just the worst thing I ever did. That was the exact cutoff. He just sucked immediately afterwards, and a huge part of it was Garendo getting the third down stuff and a lot of
Hmm.
the red zone stuff too. So I am happy to be on the other side of things now because that was a failed experiment, and I think they like Garendo a little bit more. And I think for good reason in San Francisco. So yeah, I'm happy about it too. We will see what the rest of the trade deadline holds. It sounds like Tyreek Hill might be on the move to, I believe, Nico, but that has not been officially confirmed. We shall see. All I
Pure
know is
speculation.
the price
Or Dan
tag
or
was
Luke
it could be Luke.
or Ryan.
What is
There's been some messages in my inbox. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but
I would imagine we've all
um,
gotten the Tyreek message.
I guess
I mean,
everyone here
I don't
might have.
think you're wrong, man.
Sounds like Nico has, and sounds like you two both have. So
It sounds like Nico's trying to beef up the big steppers ahead of our very highly anticipated matchup this week. So,
we'll get into it, but
um,
I definitely think that wide receiver room. is not what he hoped it was for now.
for now.
Yeah. All right. So today's main segment is going to be going team by team and talking MVP and LVP. Now, obviously, LVP is not just who scored the least points, and MVP is not most. It's against expectations going into the year. Um, so I say we start at the bottom of the table here. We have the Raiders. Is there anyone that jumped out to us as the Raiders MVP or LVP?
I think that's a clear one. I think there's a handful of ones where it's pretty obvious. You look at Jesse's team, you could make a case for Brian Thomas, but I think you expected a lot out of Brian Thomas. You could make a case for Tucker Kraft, but Tyrone Tracy, I don't know when Jesse took Tyrone Tracy, but I bet it was the fourth round.
It
Um,
was the 5'10".
Ooh,
there you go. Almost the sixth round. And he's come out and just completely taken the job from Singletary. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a running back who gets moved in the next couple days. And in terms of production, there's not a lot of it on Jesse's team. And Tracy came out to be one of the better producers he's got.
I think that would be my pick as well. I think part of what makes him so valuable to Jesse is that he took his time in getting there. Not that Jesse was a huge points, max points for watcher this year, not having his own first or second, I believe. But in theory, that's exactly what you would want on a team like this. And now he looks like he has value late in the season, but he didn't really run up that point total. You concur with?
yeah. I mean, I think BTJ gives him a good run. He looks legit. He really does. And Trevor Lawrence is having his woes, but he looks like an alpha wide receiver one. And wide receivers have historically much longer longevity than running backs. So close second, but I agree with Tracy.
And then I think for LVP, I don't know if this is a shared feeling. I'm gonna have to go with Justin Fields, taken
Ooh,
at the top of the second round in the quarterback redraft, I believe. Lawrence had a rough season, but I believe in Lawrence long term. Justin Fields had a few hot weeks, but for someone taken ahead of like Baker, Dak, Kirk Cousins, even
Oh,
Jared Goff, yeah. I mean, it was a rough go of it.
agreed.
It's a Pittsburgh pre-Russ. I was excited, and then they got Russ as well, and I was less excited. Maybe there's still a third act in there for Justin Fields, but that's my LVP for the Raiders.
I think there might be for Fields. I'm not out on Fields for the future. But if we're factoring in the price that Jesse paid, it's Fields by a long shot. I mean, he could have taken Purdy there. He could have traded down. It's for a guy to be a backup before his first season even starts with your team after you paid the 12th pick in the QB draft, is an actual disaster.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's well said. I agree.
All right. So
Sorry, Jeff.
that said, let's move on to the Fresh Prince, Thomas Griffin. Any nominees for either award from you guys?
Uh, MVP. Yeah, I'm gonna go with JSN, man. I I watch a lot of Seahawks. I got a lot of DK in other leagues. I'm a big Geno Kenneth Walker guy as well. And just watching him this year, he looks so good. And what was that? That was the Nico Olave swap, right?
Let's see.
With JMO and Jigba, I think.
Yeah, JMO,
Um,
JSN, and my second last year for Olave and a third this year.
yeah, I mean, those Ohio State prospects, man, are freaking phenomenal. And he's only 22 or 23 or whatever. So he's got a really bright future. He looks really legit this year. And, Gino has limited time left, and whoever ends up quarterbacking there in the future will keep feeding him targets. So that's my MVP.
I
Fair
concur.
enough.
It's JSN. You could point to Lad for a lot of the same reasons. I think they're similar prospects. I believe in the talent of both.
Hmm.
And with the production this year, I think we can reasonably say both are here to stay. Um, I like the talent of JSN a little more. I think the ceiling's a little higher with JSN, so I'd call JSN Tom's MVP.
Wow. I'm actually going to go Jaden Daniels. I think, though he was
Mm.
drafted high in the inaugural Superflex rookie draft, already being what he has become, and though it has tapered off a little, I think he's already got himself up there towards the front of any Superflex startup these days. And yeah, outperforming Caleb, many would say. So that's going to be my MVP for Tom. As far as LVP, I'm going to have to go Xavier Worthy.
Hmm.
Going to toot my own horn and say this is exactly what I expected. I couldn't tell you why, but these speedsters never really pan out in the NFL. Everyone loses their mind over these 4.2 something 40 times, and then they just end up being gadgets or hurt or just not seeing the field much at all. And Worthy falls into the gadget category thus far. He's averaging 9.5 a week, which isn't terrible, but considering the opportunity came wide open for him, and the Chiefs have now twice added veteran receiver help because he was not that guy in Rashi Rice's absence. Doesn't bode well, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Worthy's a reasonable pick. It's kind of hard to point out an LVP on a team that wasn't trying to win, um, when there isn't a clear Fields type of answer. I don't think I personally don't think. I mean, where was Xavier Worthy getting taken in redraft? Like, I don't think he was someone who, when you looked at Xavier Worthy's outlook, it was really banking on a lot of production this year. Like, I think he still could be someone you believe in. Someone who I think has taken a hit year, who has started to turn it around a little bit the last couple weeks, is Addison. Um, I think the ceiling for Addison, especially with Darnold coming in and kind of elevating the offense, was a lot higher than what we've seen. Um, so I definitely think he's somebody who Tom was kind of just playing the value game. He's somebody who I think had a lot of young potential and still does, but his outlook has taken a hit for sure.
Cool, cool. Um, Next, Mr. Fedor.
Mm.
Any picks for him?
Oh, Brock Bowers. Love
Yes.
it. Love Brock. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about that guy. He looks so good. Got him off me at the right time. If I held him for a year, I could have gotten, max value. All respect to Zach for that. Really smart. He just looks so good. So good.
I
I
didn't even
mean, my
realize you didn't
goodness.
draft him.
I mean, if you had to point to a single MVP on the season in terms
Yep.
of dynasty stock, it might be Brock Bowers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, I'm just now learning that he was traded for Josh Jacobs. I had no idea.
Yep.
Um,
Jacobs in the same pick I got Bowers with as well.
Interesting
Um,
LVP conversation looking at him.
mhm.
Because I think Tank Dell and Jalen Waddle both stand out for the exact same way. I think I would personally lean Tank because we've seen it from Waddle for an extended period of time, or at least more so than Tank. We have a couple weeks of Tank in this season being a disaster. The floor might have just fallen out on him completely. Waddle's got a contract. Like, I think Waddle's still insulated enough, and I think Tank, the floor might have fallen out on him. I'd be very concerned owning Tank.
I was gonna say we have this conversation like 3, 4 weeks ago, and I think it's Bryce Young, but that quickly is starting to bounce back up.
Yeah.
My personal choice here is Jalen Waddle. I mean, maybe he is more insulated, a bit safer long term. And he has had that, like you said, elite stretch of season before, whereas Tank was just a few flashes in the pan, it might seem. But I mean, not only do I not love the Miami situation, um, he's been out there for most of this year. Last year you could chalk stuff up to injuries, Waddle slumping, but this year he's just been out there and not getting it done. Tua's been back for a fat minute. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how Waddle's looked. He had a very good game against New England last week. And outside of that, in the 7 games since his bye, he's over 10 once, and it was for 11.8 point 3 points. Sorry. So not ideal, I don't think, for Jalen Waddle, who I believe, if, like you mentioned earlier, redraft, I believe he was going a lot higher than Tank Dell. So definitely part of the blame in the downturn for Team Fedor.
Yeah, I mean, this is Waddle's fourth year. I mean, he's looking so good in his first and second years, and stock was way up, but he's just kind of fallen off a cliff. I don't really know what happened. I mean, is it coaching? Is it, he's obviously said chalk up to injury, but I don't really know what's going on. He was looking like a locked and loaded dynasty WR1. So it's disappointing.
This one, this team, Patty Miller, this might be the most interesting one yet. Um, there are multiple people that I think were looking LVP and now are bouncing back. Anthony Richardson for one, um, DJ Moore for one. As a dynasty DJ Moore owner elsewhere, I was furious for most of the year, but it's starting to look okay again. Um, and then Drake London was kind of an MVP, but as of late, actually, he's been doing all right. I don't know. Do we have a pick for MVP or LVP for Pat?
Are we
Achan's
just gonna?
monster.
Yeah, yeah. Are we just gonna breeze over Kyle Pitts like that?
I was not going to say a single bad thing about Kyle Pitts, and I never will. So
I was gonna look tight end for LVP, and I was gonna call out Kincaid.
Ooh.
I think they had similar expectations going in. Pitts has flashed. It's been a rough year for Kincaid. Now he's banged up.
The Bills Mafia friendly fire there, boss.
yeah, I would never talk down on a
Come on
Florida
now.
Gator, but this guy's apparently willing to trample a Buffalo.
I believe in Kincaid, the player. I believe in him as a dynasty
Oof.
asset. It's been a rough year. Can't deny he's taken a hit. As
Some
someone
might,
who also has Pitts and Kincaid in a dynasty league, I feel better
Oof.
about Pitts right now.
some
Yeah,
might
I
say
guess that's
dog
fair.
piss for MVP. I don't know.
Some might.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, I think Achan MVP and
Yep.
Kincaid LVP for me personally.
Agreed.
This
All
one's
right,
rough.
Patty. What?
We're on to the next one's rough.
Yeah,
Brennan,
Vince Young. I mean,
Holy, sell
th
the team.
this team is taking a quick turn in terms of I guess direction they're trying to head. So I we'll call this team a contender, and by that logic, I think maybe their LVP would be probably Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley.
Tyreek Hill's got a great case. You could look at Mahomes. Mahomes hasn't disappointed, but he has not been a top five, six quarterback. Went with the number one pick.
I'm actually
100%. The floor has fallen way out.
I'm gonna go with Christian McCaffrey upon second
Oh,
glance.
come on. You're just gonna just salt the wound.
Yeah, that was tough. He told me we were talking last week because I thought he might already be selling, and I asked what the prices were on certain guys, and he said McCaffrey, he had a first lined up, and that obviously will not be occurring anymore.
I forget what I called the Justin Fields pick for Jesse, an absolute disaster, something like that.
That rings a bell.
Yeah, the McCaffrey injury is just like absolute worst case scenario. The week you get bounced out of contention, your most sellable high impact piece. He was having a good game. He was going to eat against Buffalo the rest of that game in the snow. That's just that's a shitty one. So yeah, I guess LVP is probably CMC.
As for MVP,
Uh,
I'm gonna go Chase Brown. Brennan called it early in this year. He
Yeah.
said, give Chase Brown his respect. Now, I have been kind of trying to prod him into trading me Chase Brown. So I will say, with the caveat, and these are my true feelings, I don't think this is the long-term option in Cincinnati. I traded him away in a league I'm rebuilding a couple weeks ago. But kind of out of nowhere. I mean, Zach Moss looked great in Jonathan Taylor's absence last year. Chase Brown comes in here, competes for the job for a few weeks, and then really starts winning it. And then Taylor goes down, and all of a sudden he's a 19, 20 a week guy. So um, it's either something you can trade away now or something you can be excited about for the future if that's what you believe Chase Brown is. And I think on a roster that really across the board did not live up to what it was supposed to be this year, that's going to be my MVP.
Yeah, I mean Zach Moss is going over Chase Brown and all the redrafts. At least from what I saw, it was a bit of a toss up. I guess they're kind of right next to each other, but I mean we're talking about like the double digit rounds. That was just
Yeah.
a complete value pick for whoever did that in redraft and various leagues and dynasty. Yeah, it's not too long term, but production right now, if he wants to make a final push, regardless of selling his players, is that's the guy he needs. So yeah, I go MVP.
You got someone else, Dan?
Yeah, to me it's Darnold. Um,
Hmm.
a nothing piece that has ascended to as a contender, his best quarterback, and as a dynasty piece, someone who I think is starting next year. So, I mean, that's a giant win.
That's a very fair shout.
Kevin O'Connell, if JJ is not ready yet, he's going to do the same thing for Daniel Jones next year.
Oh no.
Okay.
The Daniel Jones, Justin Jefferson stack is gonna cook.
Can't wait. Now
Wishful
on
thinking.
now on to Shelley. Um, Another contending angled team. I think my personal MVP has to be Baker Mayfield. He traded back in that quarterback draft. And I personally thought he was a fool for foregoing the rights to Dak Prescott. Um, but did he get Jaden Reed for that? He got Jaden Reed to go from Dak Prescott to Baker Mayfield. Crazy
Wow.
stuff. Has not maybe been the year that Rob was hoping for. He started off super hot and has fizzled a bit since, but Baker Mayfield certainly has outperformed what I'm sure even Rob projected of him, and that's my MVP.
I'm with you. I think that's an easy one.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any LVP picks?
Rob traded for him on this podcast. Um, he put his chips in to get his tight end one. He said maybe the tight end one, I believe. I think he said the tight end one.
He did.
Yeah, Sam Laporta is tight end 16 on the season.
Ooh.
Dumpster fire of a year for Laporta with the expectations you had.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a good shout. He's looked okay as of late, and as Rob's making this push, he's going to need every bit of his old self, I guess, even though he's only in his second year. I think a shout could go towards Raheem Mostert. Obviously, he was getting up there in age. They took Jalen Wright, but I think a lot of people believed he still had this last year on his contract to kind of go out there and ball again. And he has not. Barely touches the ball anymore these days after a little injury to start the season. So, yeah, that feels like a pretty big hole and maybe a big reason as to the difference between last year and this year for Team Cachabato. All right. Now on to the Funky Bunch, all the way down there at four.
Wow. We've talked about majority of the league. I haven't talked about ourselves yet. Here we
I
go.
know, isn't that strange? Dan, you want to go first or last?
Um, I guess I'll go last.
Okay. I think my MVP for Dan, obviously people expected big things of him through at the start of the season and all that, but coming off the Burrow injury year, talking about all this contract stuff before week one, Jamar Chase really went out there and feasted so far this year. Gotta still be, yep, still is the receiver one. I'm pretty sure he's still leaving in or still leading in receptions and receiving yards. Looking fantastic, really. He's having his usual 40 and 50 bombs, although usually those were contrasted with some serious down weeks. That was
Mhm.
my main avoidant reason for avoiding him in a lot of leagues. Only one game below 10 points. Um, just a league winner for many teams that aren't facing maybe two other much better teams on this podcast. You got anyone else, Whit?
I agree. Jamar's just so freaking good. Can't complain. I mean, he's like
Yeah,
well ahead of. I mean, who's a wide receiver too? And there's the delta in
It is
between them
Amon-Ra
is
St.
just.
Brown,
All
actually.
right, well, there you go. The delta in between Amon-Ra and Jamar is massive
It's a
in
little
terms of fantasy
sizable.
points.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so impressive.
yeah. I think it's got to be Jamar just in terms of championship winning power. And what's been mostly good, but a kind of rocky year for CD. It hasn't been perfect with Jettas. I mean, Jamar has been the elevator for this team. Little honorable mention to James Conner as well. My running back room was kind of a disaster. I needed James Conner to come in and continue what he's been doing, have a really strong season as a low end RB1, and I think he's done that. But I mean, Jamar is too good. This might be the easiest LVP pick because the reason we've needed James Conner to step up so bad is Travis Etienne.
Really?
No,
I was thinking
I got another one,
I was
baby.
thinking Debo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Debo kind of sucks.
Have you seen Travis Etienne?
I mean, he's not
Yes,
great.
yes.
I think you
Certainly
guys
not
are
startable.
I think you are underestimating how bad Travis Etienne has been.
Here's what I will say. Your team, though a contender, is kind of supposed to be ready for the long haul as well. And I think that ETN's still under a new offense because the Jags just as a whole look horrendous. You get a new coach in there, maybe he's back to being the darling. Um, I don't know. I could see it long term, all I'm saying. Debo Samuel just looks shitty. Like he just does not look like he's in the shape he needs to be in to do what he was doing. And I don't think he really has the pure receiver skill to kind of just like Devonte Adams into the sunset, like just kind of be a little route guy here and there and have the big games every now and then. Like I think he's just gonna probably get traded to some shitter next year that's trying to like give their fans something to root for and suck for the rest of his days.
Ah,
I'll say this, especially no running backs. Trying to win a championship this year, I have way more faith with having to put Debo in my lineup in the next couple weeks than I would having to put ETN.
true.
Gotcha.
Wasn't it? Is that pneumonia game, right? Against the Chiefs? Ever since then, he's just like gone off a cliff.
Yeah,
He just
facts.
hasn't recovered. He's looking like Zach Futer out here. 2 week pneumonia. It's crazy. Um, I was in talks with Danny with Travis Etienne preseason, man. I was just like, hey, I'll toss you first, this and that. I mean, that would have been just a disaster.
ETN was
So
very active in those Bowers
that's what
conversations.
there you go. So I mean,
Wow. Wow. That would have
there
been disastrous.
there would have been some very bad consequences if that went through. I mean, ETN has been horribly disappointing.
All right.
I,
We are under the 10-minute mark, so let's try and hop into our final three here because we got to talk playoffs. We're at Maximum Aura. Would you like to go first or
ah,
last?
welcome home. I'll go last again. You guys go.
Okay. Saquon Barkley is my MVP for Maximum Aura. Obviously, there were expectations. I, to start the offseason after the trade, did not have them. I was a little upset at the move from an Eagles perspective, and I certainly did not like it from a fantasy perspective. I was sure that big weeks would come here and there so long as he stayed healthy, which was no guarantee. But yeah, I think there's one other option for MVP, but I am going to give it to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, got to agree. If you take Saquon off this team, I just don't think it has the muscle to really compete. It doesn't have Cup stepping up has given you another high-end guy to go along with quarterbacks, but
Hmm.
the power, this is a team that needs a difference maker RB1, and Saquon's beyond that. Saquon's been the best the best fantasy player out there. Um Definitely honorable mentions, Bucky Irving, Bo Nix, two rookies that have come in and completely changed the future outlook for your team. So I think this was a huge, giant W offseason for Max Mamora.
Max,
Yes, sir.
Knicks and Irving would have been MVPs on a handful of these other teams.
for sure. Who's yours?
It's true. I mean, given Superflex, given where I got him at, I think it's got to be Bo. I mean, I mean, we can get into this in a second, but Deshaun Watson didn't work out very well. I made the move with Nico to get Gino for the 1 year filler, but I mean, there were some question marks, some massive question marks, halfway into the season. And Bo started off slow, and he's really emerged and he's given me a really bright future at that super flex spot. I mean, it's really helping my case to be a high floor team going forward.
LVP for you. I honestly probably Amari Cooper, I guess. I kind of liked Amari Cooper in redraft this year.
Hmm.
And I have not thought him to be very much of a contributor. Even with the team change, I thought that kind of breathed life into his stock again. And I mean, the Bills just blow. So that's not necessarily his fault.
Yeah, ignoring injuries, it's honestly hard to find one to really point out. I'll one up your Amari Cooper with Deontay Johnson,
Oh,
producing better on his original team, absent completely on his new team, and now he's getting suspended. Like it's as a Deontay Johnson owner in a couple of redraft leagues. What a bummer. He was
bomb.
cooking.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, I'd have to go Deontay. I mean, he was going crazy with Andy Dalton a couple of months ago. I was like, okay, and then yeah, I mean, him and Coop, the trades in real life for them, I thought were both going to be beneficial, and they both turned out to be dumpster fires. So, but at least Amari is still getting like 3, 4 targets a game. Deontay is nowhere to be found on the Ravens. Very sad.
All right, let's speed through the last couple.
Yep.
We got the Steppers at the 2 spot.
Yes,
I think
sir.
my LVP, and I'm very excited for this part, is CJ Stroud. CJ
Oy, oy,
Stroud
oy.
has been my nemesis all year long. He was taken at 3, I believe, in the quarterback redraft, and he is not even starting for Nico these days. Quarterback 15. I said that we were sniffing his ceiling at last year's quarterback 11 finish. There's still plenty of career left for CJ Stroud. Um, but that is my LVP. As for my MVP, I probably have to go Bijan. He kind of, with Arthur Smith in the rear view, has become not only a real boom candidate week in, week out, but very consistent high floor as well, which was a huge problem last year as a rookie. So Bijan is my MVP.
Yeah, LVP, I'm with you at Stroud. MVP, I think it's Bijan, or if you want to look long term, which Nico is still, despite being a contender this year, a team that is set up for a long term window. Neighbors took his stock through the roof. It's been rougher of late. I think we all kind of think that's the offense, not Neighbors. So he's a good candidate as well.
Yeah, I like Neighbors and Stroud.
Fair. And then we got the Lover Boys. I'll go last.
Oh dear.
MVP, I mean, he I don't want to say had because he could still have one, but it's not looking as good. Had an NFL MVP candidate. You traded for Lamar, you paid up for him, and he has been every bit of the top three quarterback that you paid up for.
Yep.
It's got to be the entire Lions offense for your MVP. I mean, you got
I
the whole
love it.
offense. I mean,
Really get the whole family in.
there's no beating around the bush with that. It's that this is the best year to own three players on one team that I've ever seen.
It's insane. They
Two of
love
them
running
being
it
running
up.
backs.
Two of being running backs, right? It's not like a RB1 and both wideouts. I mean, this is a crazy setup we're seeing, and
Running
you put
back
all your
five and
eggs into one
seven.
basket. You're not supposed to do that, and you did it, and it's working. So, well played to you.
And then my LVP is Rashad White. Any arguments?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, love it. Playoffs. Dan and I guess will voice our opinions if we have time, but we've talked about playoffs many a time. It's getting simpler now. We have our current four in order of seed, me, Nico, Luke, and Dan. And Shelly is knocking. Luke, what do you think happens these next 2 weeks?
Oh, geez. Well, the problem is, if Dan and I end up losing this week, the door is wide open for Shelly. I mean, he has to take care of his business. He claims he's feeling, comfortable or hopeful, whatever he was saying. But in terms of Dan, you play Jesse next week. Is that correct?
I do.
I mean, that's it's crazy things have happened, but that should be, knock on wood, an auto win. So it's kind of on the 8-5 boys here. I mean, if I beat Steppers this week, it could be interesting if we get a bunch at 9-5. You never know, but I think the only real path for Shelly to make some noise is to prey on my downfall. So
Really?
we'll see. I mean, I got Nico this week, tough matchup. I got Brennan next week, depending, I might end up playing Tyreek Hill anyway, one of these 2 weeks. So I'm kind of
Sure.
roped into that. So there's going to be some fireworks. I got to take care of business. I got the most points for. I don't want to let that slip. Got to keep the pedal down. And but there is no sitting comfortable in this league. I'll tell you that.
Sure. Do you have a guess as to who makes the cut?
I think it's going to stay what it is right now. I mean, there's going to have to be some not crazy upsets like I'm talking about, but things are going to have to go Rob's way. That could happen, but I think these are the best four teams in the playoffs are sitting right in front of us.
Who
Yes.
knows? Rob Schefter might be getting this inside information because he's firsthand involved in these trades. Maybe Rob
No.
just thinks he's a Tyreek Hill or a Derrick Henry away from making the playoffs.
He certainly could be. I
I
will
see an
talk.
open tight end spot on Brennan's team. I think he might be making room,
Oh my
maybe making room for
goodness.
Laporta. I don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
All I will say is, though Dan is technically in danger, Jesse is very, very, very beatable. The loser of this week's Luke versus Nico is really who's going to have to chop it up with Rob week 15. And
Yep.
I think it stays the same as well.
All
Same
right,
core we have.
let's call it there. Less than a minute.
Cool. Thank
Wonderful.
you for listening,
Wonderful.
everybody. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Wittenborn.
Yes, sir. Thanks for
Well,
having me.
I'll see you all in the playoffs, possibly.
maybe.
I sure hope so, baby. Fingers crossed. Love this league.